Raven, why did you stop posting updates? I didn't stop posting updates. I've been swamped. We just went through, I don't know, 2 weeks of a significant winter storm. Life has been absolutely chaotic at the very least, and we've all been snowed in until this last week. So the last like 5 days or so are the first time that we've been able to get out of the house and go do things and actually go to the grocery stores and get away from each other. So for essentially at least 2 weeks, we were snowed in and going stir crazy because there's not much room in this place. And not only is there not much room, but even through the walls, you can hear everything. And that's not a problem for me being heard by everyone in the house because essentially my father is mostly deaf. And then my child usually has their music on in their room. But what does happen is I can't find a place that's quiet because since my dad is mostly deaf, he listens to his TV oftentimes on volume 36. And when you're in a place that's as small as this and that sound bleeds through the wall, it can be overstimulating for somebody like me. And so to hear music coming from one room, hear a TV blasting from another, and then this has been the battle is I will turn off a light that someone has left on, and then I'll close the laundry room door because somebody is running a load of laundry and the door is open. And the other thing about this place is that it's the shape of a shoebox. And no matter what room you're in, if the door is open, the sound travels out and bounces all the way across to the other extreme end and then bounces back in the opposite direction. As an example, if my father's TV in his room is at level 36 and I'm sitting where I'm at right now, which is an office that has a door that faces away from his room, if his bedroom door is open, that sound will travel all the way down the hallway that is directly behind me and bounce off the wall and come directly back at me. Pretty much this room gets hit by all of the sound from everywhere else in this whole house, and it makes me nuts. And if it's not that I'm overstimulated, it's just that I can't get a moment of privacy because the other thing is this office doesn't have the doors any longer. I don't know how many years ago my parents decided to take the doors off. I know where they are in storage, but dragging them out and putting them back on, is it really worth it? I don't know. Even if they were on, they're hollow core doors, which is the case with almost all of the doors in this house. It's pretty much all of the original build uh, furnishings. There's been some places that they've updated, and some people have replaced the doors and put solid core doors, and it's amazing. But even like a couple of days ago, I had to go to the upstairs neighbor. We had her mail while she was traveling, and I found it for her and I gave it back to her. But even as I knocked on her door, I could hear everywhere that she was. I could hear her feet scuff on the floor, the carpet, before she even made it to the door, and I was just like, "My god, there's literally no privacy anywhere in this building." And it's exhausting. It's exhausting if you're one of the only people who can hear in the whole place, and so it just I don't have a moment of privacy. I haven't had the ability to find a quiet place and make some content. And so if it hasn't been that, I've been outside shoveling. I've been outside. We got, if you didn't know, the weather report said that we got a year's worth of snow in just 2 weeks. We had one system come through and it dumped 40 inches on us. And then within the 7 days after that, we had 2 more fronts come through, and each one came through with another 20 inches of snow. And I believe at one point they increased the number from 20 to 30. So we've had about 90 to 100 inches of snow in about 2 weeks. And not only that, like, it started off, so I wanna say, was it Christmas? We dropped it. We never, it's almost never that we see 0. Usually we drop down to the 20s. At best, we'll drop down into the teen temperatures, and at worst, we'll see maybe 4 degrees. I think it was right after Christmas, we started to see 0, and not just 0, we started to see -16 and -20 temperatures. That never happens in Southeast Alaska. We are a temperate rainforest, and temperate means that we essentially stay right around 40 degrees all year round. For us to stray more than 20 degrees from 40 is extreme. Like, winter is usually in the 20s at best, and summer is usually in the 60s. And if we lose the cloud coverage, that's when we'll see the more extreme temperatures. But because we're a rainforest, that's why we're temperate, because the cloud coverage keeps us very close to 40. It's when we lose the cloud coverage that we'll see the extreme temperatures. And since we're a rainforest, it's very unusual for us to lose the cloud coverage. And it's very unusual for us to see anything beyond a 20-degree variation from 40. So for us to see -16 or -20, we were crying because a lot of our homes were just stressed, trying to pump out heat, trying to keep the water running. A lot of homes had pipes burst, a lot of homes had their plumbing stop, and it was chaos, pure chaos. And then when it warmed up to the teens, yay, never thought we'd see a day that would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad it's 12 degrees." Once it warmed up, then the struggle was it wouldn't stop snowing. And it just kept coming down harder and harder and harder. My car is now damaged. A plow ran into it, though it's not nearly as bad as some of the people. Sorry about that. Hold on. Where was I? So yeah, we just saw loads and loads of snow. We were going stir crazy. Businesses were closing down, schools were closed down. So we went from winter break with the students at home straight into snow days, and then they went back for 1 day of school. Thank God, because we were all sick of each other. But then, as soon as they went back to school, we knew it wasn't going to hold, but they basically sent people home early in some cases because the buildings, there was so much snow load on the roofs that once it warmed up enough, then there was fear of roof collapse, which is why a lot of the buildings were closing, because there was so much snow load on the roofs. And we had seen this 2 or 3 years ago where we had a pretty significant snowstorm in a shorter window, not nearly as much snow, but it was enough snow and enough heavy, watery snow that it collapsed the roofs of several buildings and shut down one of the schools. And in that storm, there was one building in particular that whole building is now just gone. And so we knew we were approaching that same circumstance because of how much snow was on those roofs, which until it warmed up, it was fine because it was dry, light, fluffy snow, which in retrospect, I'm kind of like, if people had got up there, honestly, with even leaf blowers, it would have been fine. Um, but that didn't happen because we were overtaxed as a community. And so many people were hiring other people to dig out their driveways, plow their driveways, shovel their roofs off, and get rid of snow loads in places that were precarious. And I want to say one company flew in 200 workers to help with the snow removal. We ran out of shovels. We ran out of supplies. All of the stores sold out of all of those supplies, and right before the second round of snow came through, which was the heavy wet snow, uh, people then were starting to sell their shovels for like $200, and people went from charging like $500 for removing snow off the roof to 800, 1200, even $3,000 in some cases to remove the snow from the roof. And I know that there was one residential home that they had done nothing, and a pretty significant portion of their roof collapsed. And now their house is facing a lot of water damage because now there's a corner of their main living area that is exposed. And we had an atmospheric river move in right after everything switched from snowing to melting. So, on top of the melting snow, we had an atmospheric river move in, and there was a snow dam that broke loose about a mile down from where I live. And in the middle of the night, there was basically a raging river coming down through the neighborhood, and dozens of people had to come out in the middle of the night to try to help save some people's homes. There was one guy who they said he had knee-deep water in his home because it was coming off the hill and going straight through his home. And it's just been a disaster. And like I said, my car got plowed. It's not nearly as bad as these other people who were parked down on the main roadway. I don't know what happened there, because it wasn't like the plow people couldn't see that these cars were there. It was obvious that there were cars there. And yet there was a streak of at least 5 cars, maybe 6 cars straight in a row that had a plow just run down this entire side of their cars. And so there's a lot of claims going out. There was another situation where a plow went over the bridge, and there's these, what are they called? They're like joints in the bridge, and they were put in a couple of years ago, and everybody hates them. We don't know why they went this route, but they have these rubber flaps over the joints. And what's supposed to happen is these joint positions are meant to give flexibility to the bridge in the changing temperatures. They're just kind of obnoxious because we never had them in that bridge for the over 30 years that that bridge has been in existence. We've never had that type of a joint connection, and they decided to go with it recently, and it's just been a headache ever since. And during the snowstorm, I want to say about 5 days into the snowstorm, a plow went over the bridge and caught one of those rubber flaps. Well, this was when we were still in the negative temperatures, and that rubber, because it was so cold, acted like hard plastic instead of soft, pliable rubber. And there were dozens of people who had their tires completely slashed and flattened because of this frozen flap that got ripped up by the snowplow. So I've been very nervous about coming and going from our house, trying to go to the grocery store, etc., because it's never until you get right before you're about to hit that joint that you're like, oh yeah, and then there's not enough time to dodge what could be the potentially sharp edge that's still there. And there's been more reports even since that first incident that they're like, it's back, it's puncturing tires again. So it's just been stressful lately. I have been paying attention to the docket, though not as intensely, because this has really been eating up a lot of my time and attention, and it's stressing me out. So I can't wait to dig in. I am livid. I'm livid that Baldoni's address has been put on the documents and not redacted. But at the same time, it's almost like because here's the thing. You know what? I'm gonna make another post. I'm gonna go into that. I'm gonna leave this one standing alone so we can have that conversation next.